Hi there, and a very warm welcome to this course in electronic music production with Ableton Live, the latest and greatest music software on the planet. My name's Simon Stokes. I'm an Ableton certified trainer, but primarily I'm an artist. I work here out of my studio in Glasgow in Scotland, where I produce my own music under a variety of monikers, but most notably Petrichor on Soma Records, where I produce kind of ambient techno and house music and a wide variety of different kind of styles mashed into one. On Soma Records, which is one of the largest kind of independent techno labels in the world. As Petrichor, I've toured across the world, playing in cities all around Europe and in Asia, as both a DJ and a live act. So I have a wide array of experience in that kind of field as well, in performance and how you develop your sound into something which is tourable around the world. I'm also working day to day with a whole bunch of different artists as a producer, as a mixing engineer, as a mastering engineer, and I work in a variety of different fields, also as someone who's a consultant in live performance, and I have a vast array of knowledge of electronic music production in all its different forms. I'm not particularly snobby about music. I really enjoy working on lots of different things, and I really try to get into the headspace of whatever my artists are working on and try to help them achieve their goals and push things forward. This studio is based at my music school, which is here in Glasgow in Scotland as well, called Subsign Academy. And here I've been sort of passing on my knowledge in the evenings and weekends on how to produce electronic music and trying to help the next generation of electronic music producers to get out there and get across the world. And we've got so many students now who are signed to record labels, who are releasing music, who are touring DJs. We've got people who are actually touring all over the world who have studied here. We've also got a really strong network of students who have come through the courses here and keep in touch and help each other to kind of succeed, to push forward and to keep refining their skills. I have an even wider network of people around the world, in excess of 10,000 people who have taken online courses, who have studied and learned and worked at their music production and are now at really decent levels releasing music and achieving their goals. And this is the start of the journey. This is where you're going to learn how to make your first track, start to finish. So a very warm welcome to it, and I really hope you enjoy the course. Okay, so here we are inside Ableton Live. This is what you're presented with when you first open the software. So Ableton Live is a DAW, a digital audio workstation. There's loads of different ones that you can use. You might have heard of Reason, Logic, Pro Tools, Fruity Loops. Lots of people have tried different ones. I've worked with them all over the years, but honestly, see, when you get into Ableton Live, it is the best one, purely because it's a professional piece of software which is very accessible. It has a great workflow. Once you understand the workflow, it just all makes sense. The problem is the initial learning curve is really, really steep. That's what we're going to batter through in this course. So once you're through that initial learning curve, things just make sense in it. And I've known people to use Ableton Live for producing electronic music, which is what it's really famous for, producing loop-based music, everything from house, techno, ambient, through to pop or whatever you want. But you can use it for recording bands. You can use it for recording an orchestra if you want. You could use it for absolutely anything. It's one of those pieces of software. It's just completely versatile. I use it for live performance. I've toured all over the world playing with Ableton Live at the center of my live setup with synthesizers and drum machines coming off of it. You might see behind me in my studio, I've got a lot of different bits of kit, but Ableton Live is the center of the entire thing, center of my universe. I pretty much talk about it all day, every day. So, when we're looking in Ableton Live here, you need to choose, first of all, what version of Live are you going to get? So there are 3 versions currently of Ableton Live. There's the trial, which is a free 30-day trial. That's the unrestricted version of the full Ableton Live Suite, which is the top level of Ableton Live. So Ableton Live Suite comes with everything. It comes with loads of synthesizers, drum machines, but most importantly, a huge library of samples, music, and audio effects, and all sorts of things for you to play with. So the top version, Ableton Live Suite, is obviously the most expensive. It's also what you get in the trial. So if you just want to work through this course and just give it a bash, and you're not sure if you're going to stick with Ableton Live or whatever, then just use the trial version. You can save. It's totally unrestricted for 30 days, no problem. The standard version of Ableton Live comes with less instruments. So it comes with more, still has some of the sample packs and still has most of the audio effects, but it has just a little bit less instruments, less synthesizers and sound design kind of tools, but is a bit cheaper. And the intro version is basically your more basic kind of just getting into Ableton Live sort of software. So you're restricted in how many different sounds you can have at once. That's kind of limited in the intro version. There's very few kind of instruments and drum machines, but there's plenty to get you up and running in intro. So for this course, I'm just going to use the intro version of Ableton Live, because that way you'll get to understand how it all works, how you can build a whole track with not very much there. It's also a very accessible, cheap, easy way in to Ableton Live. So if you're tight on money and you want to buy Ableton Live, just get the intro version, but you probably will find at some point you'll want to upgrade so that you can have more sounds running at once. Now, that will all make sense as we go through, but I'm going to use the intro version for this course. I will show you what's in the other versions at some point as well. So if we're looking around Ableton Live, the first thing I normally want to do is set up how it looks and feels. So we're going to go into the preferences. Now, on a PC, you can go to your options and settings. I'm running on Windows just now. I prefer Windows. Most people run Macs, in which case you can go to Live and then Preferences on a Mac, or Settings. I think they've changed it to in the recent Mac OS. But Options, Settings will take you into your Preferences dialog or Settings dialog. You can also get into that using Control and comma on a PC or Command comma on a Mac. That's going to take you into your preferences, and that's very handy because you're going to do that a lot. Control comma takes you in to see stuff. So just to get us set up, we don't need to play with too much in here. We'll probably look at these things as we go along. It'd be insanely boring for me to go through everything. Let's go into the themes first. So the default theme is kind of dark like this. It's quite nice. You can change to more colorful ones. Oh, don't like that. You can change to more colorful ones like this. You can change to this lighter theme if you prefer. This is what the old Ableton looks like. There's a few different sort of looks that it's got. The default one's quite nice. You can also brighten it up a little bit using the brightness here. So I'm going to go with the default, but make it a bit brighter. Grid line intensity, this applies when you're a bit later on and stuff. We can talk about that. But yeah, there's lots of little settings for you to play around with, whether you prefer it warmer, cooler, whatever suits best for your eyes. I'm going to keep it on the default setting, just keep up the brightness a little bit. In the display and input, the only thing I want to do here is zoom it a little bit. So at the moment, you might find, depending on what type of screen you're using, is that the actual software might look quite small to you. So if you're a little older and your eyes are maybe going a little bit, that happens. Or if you're just finding it a little hard to see things, you can use this zoom to zoom the entire display to kind of suit what you want. So I'll zoom it up a little bit so it's easier to see in this video. I kind of like it zoomed in a little bit anyway, just for clarity. You don't normally need, but sometimes you need lots and lots of real estate, so you can actually zoom it down the way as well, so you can see like tons and tons of stuff. But I'm going to keep it, not quite that. That's like my first Ableton. I'm going to keep it like this just now. And that will probably do us for looking in here just now. Other things that you need to set up at the start, this little info window. Now, when you're getting started with Ableton Live, you might like to have this on. It kind of bugs me because it gets in the way and stops me seeing more information down here. So you can turn that off with the eye on the bottom left, or you can just keep it on. If you're brand new to it, it is quite handy because it can give you little shortcuts and information about everything inside Live. I'm going to turn mine off for just now and keep it nice and clean. Down in the bottom right, this arrow here is going to let us see the different things that we can turn on and off in our user interface to do with our tracks in Ableton. At the moment, there's these inputs and outputs here, which, especially if you're on a small screen, is a little bit too much information for just now. So let's turn off I/O. And you can see it tells you the shortcut there if you want to use that, but we don't need to do that really at the moment. So now we've got a nice, clean, easy to view screen. On the left-hand side, we've got our browser. This is where you find things to bring into your project. So, for example, you might want to bring in some sounds, in which case in the sounds category here, you can see that depending on what version of Ableton Live you're on, there's different kind of configurations of this browser. I'm in Live 12 here at the moment, and you can see that the bass category, if I click on bass, then it's going to give me lots of bass sounds. These are all things that you can bring into your project. So if I want piano sounds, there's lots of them in there. You can find lots and lots of different stuff just by narrowing down and playing with the different filters up here to see what types of sounds are available inside Ableton Live. These have all been made with Ableton sound designers for you, basically, for you to use in your projects. So we'll come on to them in a little while. We've got drums as well. Now, depending on what you have installed in Ableton Live, you'll have more or less drums than me. Everybody will have the core kits, which are these. And this is what we're going to start working with when we're building up drum kits. Classic 808s, 909s. We're going to talk a lot about these as we go along. So loads of nice drums in here. Our instrument section, again, depending on what you've got installed, you're going to have more or less instruments than what I've got in here. Now, I've got everything installed, so I've got quite a few. But yeah, you might not. So yeah, depending on what version of Ableton Live you have, you're going to see different things in here. Audio effects, we've got a whole load of different effects in here as well, ready to go. We're going to come on to these. These process the sound in some kind of way. MIDI effects process notes and change notes as you're playing them. They're really good fun to play with. We'll come on to that later. And there's loads of other stuff that we don't need to go through in too great detail just now. Modulators, Max for Live, that's a kind of development environment for Ableton. Plugins, this is where if you want to add things on to Ableton, you can install third-party plugins. Samples, these clips and samples are kind of made by Ableton for you to use in your projects. They're just kind of like, again, depending on what you've got installed, you might see more or less of these. Clips are more like little loops and little things that you can play with. And you'll see if you click on them, it will give you kind of medieval, make some medieval techno today. Yeah, so loads of different things you can play with in there. Clips and samples, personally, I try to avoid them purely because everybody who has Ableton Live has similar clips and samples to these. So I tend to just try and avoid that a little bit. I like to try and create everything that I'm going to use myself. It just means that you've got full ownership over everything that you do. And that's the way I'm going to teach this course, is that we're going to do everything the hard way, basically. So if you want a shortcut, then you've come to the wrong place. We're going to learn how to do things the correct way, building things yourself, learning how to create each step of the process yourself. It's the best way to learn, believe me. So yeah, we've got lots of stuff, which we'll kind of cover a little as we go through. Now, when I was saying I've got more stuff installed than you might have, that's because I've got a bunch of packs installed here. And packs let you add things on. These are sold by Ableton to let you add new drums, new sounds, new effects, like whatever it is. You can get these in packs. They're all available on Ableton's website. So I have loads and loads of these
that adds things into your kind of library up here. So this is our browser section. This is where you're going to bring everything that you want to bring into your project. You drag it from the browser section. Now, just looking through Ableton a little bit, we're in what's called session view just now. Now, session view is where we build up all the ideas for our tracks. This is what made Ableton very famous when it first came out, was the way that it uses session view. So we're going to stick in this view for a good wee while. If you use this button in the top right here, you can tab across to the arrangement view. An arrangement view is where you structure your track. So once you've got a good idea, you then turn it into an arrangement that plays start to finish. Now that will make sense as we go through. Right now, it might be total gobbledygook for you, but you can use the tab button on your computer keyboard to go between the two. So tabbing between session view and arrangement view. And a lot of people who use Macs maybe don't know what the tab button is. It's below your escape button. It's got the arrows on it. They've taken all the words off of the keyboard, so you have to just kind of work out which one's which. But tab lets you go between those two different views, which is really good. And just looking around, what else have we got? Your BPM up at the top here. This is the beats per minute or tempo of your project. At the moment, mine's set to 120 beats per minute. So I'm going to turn on the metronome and then press play. And you can hear the speed that that's going at. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I take this 120 and drag it up the way, so I'm clicking, dragging my mouse straight up. You never drag left and right in Ableton. You always drag straight up, straight down. So if I grab this and drag it up to 160 BPM and press play, you can see we're going much faster now. Let's take this and drag it all the way up. You can go to ridiculous speeds. Nobody could dance to that. Let's go to 999 BPM. So this is where you set the speed of your project. Now, depending on what you're into, let's say you like disco and deep house music, you're probably going from 108 to 122 or something like that BPM. Let's say you're liking your kind of more house, tech house. You may be going in the 120s from 122 up to 130 odd. There's no rules, but this is just sort of general guidelines. If you like techno, then you tend to be going from about 128 to 140. If you like harder techno, maybe 150, 160 sometimes. I think that's a bit fast for techno, but a lot of the stuff these days is a little faster than it used to be. 180 for drum and bass, roughly. And once you get up to the 200s, you're talking up-tempo, hardcore type speeds. So, yeah, I'm going to go with a amiable 124 for just now. Let's go a little gentle pace to get us going. And I can turn the metronome off now. I don't need that on the whole time. This is our tunings for our project. We'll come back to this a little bit later on. This lets you choose a kind of tuning or a key for your entire track. We've got play, stop, arrangement record, and session record. There's 2 record buttons up here. The big record button records into arrangement view, so that's this side. The little record button records into session view, which is this side. And our play button, you can do that just by hitting space. Space and space again to stop. So that's fine. That's about all we need to know with the kind of transport up here. We've got a browser, we've got a transport section, that's play, stop, tempo, all that jazz. And then we've just got a couple of different tracks at the moment. So we've got 2 MIDI tracks, 2 audio tracks, and we're going to look at how to use those in a little bit. We'll get into more detail as to how to explain what those are, but MIDI tracks basically are for instruments to go onto. So all of these instruments here can go onto a MIDI track, and once they're on a MIDI track, you can play them. Either using a keyboard that you've plugged in or just using the mouse, which we'll come on to in a little bit. Audio tracks are just for using audio loops, like little pre-recorded bits of sound. So it could just be like someone playing the bongos that's been recorded with a microphone. You could bring that into an audio track, loop it, and use it in your track. Or maybe you want to take an old disco record, find a cool little bit of it, sample it, and then put some beats on it and stuff. You would do that using an audio track as well. So the two different types of tracks, we're going to stick with MIDI tracks right now. We're going to build everything ourselves. So to get rid of the audio tracks, just click on one and hit backspace or delete on your keyboard. And let's get rid of the other one as well. And we're left with two MIDI tracks, basically. Lastly, there's a mixer section down here. We're going to cover that in a little more detail as we go on. We've got buttons for solo to hear a track on its own, buttons for mute to take a track out, and a record button as well. But we'll come on to that in a little second anyway. But for now, what we need to do is get our sample pack downloaded and brought into Ableton Live. So we're going to do that in the next video.